Michael said, have you got any advice, you know? So I said, yeah, look, this is what you got to do. You're really hot. It's just starting. It just had Off the Wall. And I said, you've got to make some great videos. So he went off and made Thriller and things like that. I said, you've got to get a really good manager because it's all going to be coming in and it could all go out if you don't. And I said, and you ought to think of getting into song publishing.
For a business, you ought to think about music publishing. It's because it's very good business. You love music. I'm into it. It does very well. It's a nice, easy business for a musician to be in. And it's a very rewarding business because it's music, it's songs, beautiful songs.
It actually kind of fell apart a little bit later because he was talking to me and asking my business advice. And one of the things I said to him was, think about getting into music publishing. And then he looked at me kind of, I thought he was joking, he said, I'm going to get yours.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I kind of thought, oh, you.
I suppose Michael knew I was trying to sort of get control of him, and I kind of thought he was joking. I used to work with him, and he'd say, I'm going to get your record, you know. I'm going to get your songs. I'm going to buy your songs.
I'm going to buy your songs, you know. And I went, yeah, great, you know, good one, and we just carried on. And then a few weeks after that, he said, I'm going to buy your songs. I thought, well, it's a bit of an old joke by now, but very funny, all right, you know. And I still thought he was kidding, you know.
But it turned out to be true, and...
And just a few weeks later, just somebody rang me up and said, Michael Jackson's bought Northern Songs.
And what happened, actually, is then I started to ring him up, because I thought, OK, here's the guy historically placed to give Lennon McCartney a good deal at last.
John and I didn't know about song publishing. We literally thought that songs were in the air and that everyone owned them. That's literally how we met our first publisher. Hi there. He said, come in, sit down. Is that what you think? Sit over here. And that was the deal they did.
Well, pretty soon you had to get to know they could be owned because someone else knew they weren't in the sky. And he owned them. So that's what happened to us on the Northern Songs thing, which was me and John. Very early on, we got managed very well into a little situation. So it meant that the lion's share of whatever songs we did were taken by someone else.
When we went to Rishikesh with the Maharishi, the man who owned them sold them while we were out of town. Dick James, his name was. When we got back to town, we said, Dick, you can't do that. He said, you want to bet? And he was quite right. He had 51% of the company.
And what happened was, at a certain point, these songs changed hands from the original publisher to another guy, and then to another guy. And at one of these junctures, I was offered the songs.
Then there was a chance where I could have bought it. I felt very embarrassed buying them myself, because they're Lennon McCartney's. I wouldn't have liked to just own them myself. I felt bad about that. So I rang Yoko, and I said, look, we got a chance to buy these songs. The man's asking 20 million, 10 to you, 10 to me. Should we do it?
And she actually said, I think we can get it for 5.
In fact, they didn't go for 20, they went for 50. Straight off the back of Thriller, he was like, cash rich, baby.
Because we'd got signed when we were 21 or something in a back alley in Liverpool, and the deal had remained the same, even though we'd made this company the most famous, hugely successful. So I kept thinking it was time for a raise. You know. Well, you would, you know.
Yes, I think so.
And
But I do intend to have a word with him. I spoke to him in LA, actually.
You did?
Yeah, and said, look, we've got to come to a good understanding here, because there are a number of things I don't like about how he runs the company.
In our case, the trouble is, like the Nike thing that came up, I don't know if you heard about that, but the trouble is that we never did do commercials.
With the Beatles, we had all those offers. You know, anybody who publishes songs, you get those offers. Hey, can we use this commercial? We had the offers from the big soft drinks companies. You know who I'm talking about. Big, huge offers to use a Beatles song, to use this and that. But we always turned them down because we believed it'd devalue the whole thing.
Just takes that little edge off it that people who like Beatles stuff kind of go, nowhere, man. And revolution. They kind of feel something for it, you know? And that was what we tried to do. That's what we were all about, was trying to resist all those commercial offers.
We'd be seen to be selling out.
which we were keen not to do. You know, we kind of felt that our fans believed in us and that we owed them some sort of integrity. We talked to them, we knew what they thought of us, you know. So something like Revolution, you know, it meant more than a pair of sneakers.
Songs like Revolution didn't mean a pair of sneakers. It meant revolution. It was an idea that became important to some people.
His National Panasonic is All You Need Is Love.
Yeah.
Good Day Sunshine's an Oreo cookie these days.
And I think the danger is it does devalue it, and I think even commercially it's not that great a decision. But anyone who knows music publishing, there's a lot of pressure on you to do that because it's a big heap of cash comes in suddenly, and you know, it's very hard to resist for anyone. But I think we shouldn't do that. I don't really think we should do that. I think it's more sensible to leave the kind of legend intact. And I think they'll do great, the songs. I think they'll continue to do great. Now, if you know somebody else wanted to do it, then fine, it's fine. But that's what's happening now, is our songs are tending to get a little bit commercialized now, which I'm not too wild on, because it kind of spoils them a little bit.
No, but I did talk to him about it, but he kind of blanked me on it. He kept saying, that's just business, Paul, you know.
He just sort of says, oh, that's business, and that's it. And I say, yeah, sure, it's business. It's also friendship. It's also morals.
But we never kind of got to it. And I thought, so we kind of drifted apart. It was no big bust-up. Yeah. We kind of drifted apart after that.
Okay.
But he was a lovely man.
I'm going to make this video as simple as I can, because music publishing can become very, very complicated. But I want y'all to understand what's going on here, or what did happen when Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog, and how you can avoid this. So if you're somebody that's ever had any questions about music publishing, if you're an artist, you want to understand how to keep your publishing, how to make money from your publishing, you need to watch this entire video, because I'm going to give you a lot of nuggets on how you can make money from your publishing, what kind of publishing deals to avoid, and what happened right here with Michael Jackson and the Beatles. If you're somebody that wants to keep your shit, you need to watch the entire video. Hit like, hit share, stay locked in.
My ducks, my swans, welcome to the pod.
My name is Dorian from Group82University.com, and right here we got Paul McCartney talking about how Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog. Now, this is a story that's been floating around for a very long time. Go to Google, you type it in, you're gonna be able to see how Michael Jackson finessed them at their own catalog. Now, how did the Beatles, one of the most iconic bands, and I think the greatest selling band in the history of music, get finessed out of their publishing by an artist that was younger than them and came after them? Because like Paul McCartney said in this clip, when they were younger, they did not understand music publishing. When they came into the music business, they were in their early 20s. They were just like a lot of y'all, just want to make music and get your music heard. But when your music gets played, what happens? Somebody gets paid. And they get paid from the royalties and from the publishing. And the publishing is the idea of the record. So I got a song called Don't Sleep. It has 1 million streams on Spotify. So everything I talk about in Don't Sleep, I don't really talk about shit because it's just a fun ass song. Everything I talk about in Don't Sleep is my ideas. I own the publishing to that. Any song that you release, you own the publishing to that. You. Nobody else. If you helped write it, you own the publishing to that. Now, if you get in some sort of split sheet and you sign this away and you do this and whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop, that's when you don't own your publishing anymore. So a lot of y'all probably asking, if I'm an artist and publishing's really lucrative, why would I ever sign it away? Because this is what happens. These artists sign to a label. Let's say Universal. And when they sign them to a traditional record deal. And they might keep that publishing out of the record deal. But what will happen is somebody like Sony will say, hey, we saw you just sign to Universal. That's awesome. We have Sony ATV Publishing House. And this is what we will do. We will take your songs and we'll put you in the new Rock movie, the new Kevin Hart movie. You'll be in the next Disney movie. You'll be in the next Denzel movie. We'll put you in NBA commercials. We'll have you in NBA Youngboy and 21 Savage. And we'll do all these things with your music if you sign your publishing over to us. And on top of that, we're gonna give you an advance. So you just got your advance on your normal record deal of $50,000. We're gonna give you a $50,000 advance for your publishing. And for those of y'all that don't know the record business, that seems like a great deal, but it's not. It's terrible. Because the moment that a song gets played, what happens? Somebody gets paid. So you sign over your publishing, and now you got your $100,000 from Universal and from Sony ATV. You feeling good about yourself. And your song's on Inside the NBA, and you look like you a big star. But guess what? You're not getting none of that, because you have signed over ownership. The record label's getting your royalties, your publishing house is getting your publishing. And unless you broker some sort of deal where you get the lion's share, it's just not gonna be worth it for you. And these deals usually last in perpetuity. That means forever. And what happens is these labels, because Sony, they use all their resources to build these songs up, to put them in as many placements as they can, to make the songs more popular. So they get bought more, they get streamed more, and that raises the value of your songs. And then they go and they sell it to some other company or to some private investor or to some venture capitalist firm for $150, $200 million. And you don't get none of that. And they take that $200 million and then they go buy the next artist's catalog, and it's just rinse and repeat. That's what they've been doing for years. Going all the way back to the Beatles, even before them. Chuck Berry and all those dudes from back in the 40s and 50s were going through the exact same thing. There's also a thing called a commitment deal with publishing houses. What's a commitment deal? A commitment deal is when you sign with a publishing house, and they might just sign you because you have a song like Don't Sleep that has 1 million streams. So they might look at you like, hey, Dorian, you know, you can write a song that's gonna get streamed. That's great. Can you write 14 more of those? Like, hell yeah, I can write 14 more of those. I'm Dorian. What are you talking about? I can write whatever the hell I want to. I did that, didn't I? Wasn't even thinking about it. I can do whatever I want, nigga. Okay, if you write 14 more of those, we're gonna give you an extra $100,000. Bet. So then I go and I write 14 more songs. And now I gotta turn these songs into them. And do you know what they're doing? They're telling me, Even Love Me ain't gonna work. Michael Porter's not gonna work. Rotate, could you adjust that? They start nitpicking at your music because they're thinking about getting your music placed in TV shows, movies, and commercials, remember? Video games. They ain't thinking about if the song's dope. They ain't thinking about if it's connected with your audience. They're thinking about, can it get placed in Insecure? Can your song get placed in The Devil Wears Prada? How many rappers are making songs get placed in The Devil Wears Prada? We're not, but it's a commitment deal. And if you don't reach that commitment, they're not entitled to pay you shit. I have a video where Waka talks about he was signed to a commitment deal. Go watch it. Do not sign a commitment deal. Don't sign any sort of publishing deal unless you don't care about who owns your music. That leads me to my final point with Paul McCartney. Everybody was just passing their songs around like a whore in Vegas because they just sell it nonstop. And your catalog's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the next thing you know, it's owned by Michael Jackson, who's your homeboy, who's your friend. And you think that he's gonna do the right thing and sell it back to you. But what Michael tell him? Nah, my nigga, this shit just business. I'm not selling you shit. This is what happens when you give up your publishing. You don't give up anything. If you wanna make money from your publishing, you hold on to it. We're living in this world of social media. You need to put your songs in all your social media content like I do. But all these videos, these long form videos, they have songs that are owned by Group 82. And my publishing house is Songs by Group 82. That's what I named it. And I own all my records. So as you continue to make more content, these are my TV shows. These are my commercials. I'm putting my songs in there and I get publishing here and there, but as the social media legislation catches up, we're going to get more. So there's no reason for you not to make content. There's no reason for you not to put your music inside there. So that way you can make your publishing catalog increase in value and you ain't never got to sell it to nobody. Does that make sense? Did I break down publishing for you where it really makes sense for you now? Do you see the importance of not selling it? Then you need to hit like. You need to share this video. You need to comment. And you need to go buy our course, How to Market Your Music on Social Media. Because if you like content like this and saw how I broke this down off the top, imagine what I did inside the course where I show you how to get 1 million streams on Spotify, how to chart #1 on iTunes, how to hire a team with no money, and how to turn people that don't even know you into your biggest fans out. Get a free mini course, click the link in the bio on Instagram up top, YouTube, click the link in the box. Out the pod. Y'all stay true.
I flex hard, I stunt large, I pull cards, you ain't hard, I spit back, your squad whack, y'all heard that, run this back.
Group82University.com